mute, there's a mute button on your screen all the way at the bottom on the left if you're watching on video. If you're on your phone, you can go ahead and just mute it via your phone as well. You can hit the mute button on your phone there, but the mute button on screen is in the bottom left. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, but you can send us questions at any time. You can text them to us at that number on the screen, 763-260-1001. You can also email them there. There's an email address. We'll grab them there. Or you can use the chat function here in Zoom. The chat function is the bottom middle button on your screen. And if you go see that, you can also see that you have other fellow Highland folks messaging each other from all over the US. So feel free to do that during the presentation. So with that, it is 1:07 Central Time, 1:06 Mountain Time. So we're going to go ahead and get started here for the sake of everybody's time. So we appreciate you joining. For those I haven't met, my name is Josh Krenz. I'm the chairman of the Highland Beef Marketing Committee, and I'll be doing some introductions here tonight and then turning it over to our main speaker. So with that, Mark, if you can go to the next slide, please. So want to talk a little bit about the American Highland Cattle Association for a second. And so a lot of the folks on here are members, but not everybody is. We welcome the opportunity for you to join if you haven't. We're the oldest Highland Cattle Association in the United States, established in 1948. We'll be celebrating our 75th year here in a couple of years. And we've got some great things in the works to help celebrate that as an association. As an association, we have a board. The board's all listed on the website, which is Highland Cattle USA. You can see that all the way at the bottom of your screen. We always are looking for your feedback. We have several members of the board, including myself and Kevin Opperman, who's the president, that is on here as well tonight. We're always welcoming your feedback and really look for your feedback because we are a member-driven organization. So go look up the directors and different folks on there. We also have several different committees outside the Highland Beef Marketing Committee that are part of the association. And just like any member-driven association, committees are really the lifeblood. And so there's several members on here from the Highland Beef Marketing Committee, and there's lots of other committees as part of the association as well. So if you've got a talent, or if you just like to volunteer some time and be part of the association, we'd welcome you to join any one of those committees that are also listed on the website. ACA has many functions, including maintaining the registry, including being the embodiment for all the regional associations. All of us that are ACA members get the bagpipe, which the next issue will be coming out here in about 3 or 4 weeks. So we look forward to seeing that summer issue here shortly, as well as other functions like juniors and the quality beef assurance and other programs that ACA has. So there's a lot of benefits. Dues are due this time of year, which is the other reminder. So if you haven't talked to Gina or Molly in the office, reach out to them, and we hope that you renew your ACA dues this year and continue to support the organization. And we look forward to getting your feedback as well. So Mark, if you can go to the next slide. So specific to the Highland Beef Marketing Committee, who is sponsoring our seminar here tonight, the Beef Marketing Committee, like I mentioned, is a committee of ACA. We have a lot of different functions, but our main function is to really promote beef. And when I say beef, I mean in the consumption part of it. So think steaks, roasts, hamburger, and so forth. And you as members, and all of you have an interest in beef, obviously, because you've joined our conference call tonight to learn more from Mark about his operation and what they do out in Pittsburgh. We have many different educational materials that are available from an association standpoint. A couple of years ago, we created what we call the Skillet Materials, which are the materials that you see on the screen here. These are free for you to use. You can also add your farm name and customize them. So those are things you can reach out to the office and talk to Gina and Molly, or email myself or Mark or any one of the members of the committee, and we'd be happy to direct you on where to find those materials and examples of how we've used them on our farms as well. The other thing we do as a committee is we help promote the quality Highland beef. And we'll talk about that more here later in Mark's presentation. He's got a slide on that. But QHB is really that is really about promoting the consistency of Highland beef, that tenderness and all those characteristics like leanness and low fat and high protein that we talk about in Highland beef. That's what QHB is. To become a QHB certified farm and be able to use the stamp on your beef, there is a separate membership fee for that. So you can pay that the same time that you pay your ACA dues, but that gives you access to all kinds of QHB literature. We occasionally order bags and some other things that you can put the QHB logo on. You can use the logo on your own merchandise as well. So there's a lot of benefits to the program, and it helps outline and keeps Highland beef consistent as well. So just wanted to touch on QHB. And if you have questions on that, you can reach out to us, any one of the committee members too. The other thing the committee does is we promote and help facilitate research and other ways to help promote Highland beef. So specifically, our committee helped push the University of Missouri study that was done a couple of years ago. For those that are newer to the association that may not have seen that study, that data is available on the Highland Cattle USA website, where you can contact one of the members. And that was really a study to look at the tenderness and look at the shear score of Highland beef and really show that it's just as tender, if not more tender eating experience compared to other forms of beef. And it really showcased that as part of that study. And we had ACA members from all over the US participate and send meat to the University of Missouri to be tested as part of that study. So that's really the function of the Highland Beef Marketing Committee, and we welcome you to contact us to learn more. And if you've got a passion for beef marketing or any one of the other committees that ACA has, please contact the chairperson for those committees as listed in the bagpipe and also on our website, and we'd be happy to welcome your input on those committees. So Mark, if you can go to the next slide, please. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mark Smith. Mark is the one of the co-owners of Pittsburgh Highland Farm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's been in the Highland business for over 10 years. He's been a great part of ACA, MAHA, and other components of the Highland breed. And he has been a key component there and really driving some of the, not only the Highland beef consumption there in the Pittsburgh market, but also helping really market grass-fed beef and some of the other things that they're doing there. So with that, I will let Mark introduce his farm, and we look forward to learning more about Highland grass-fed beef and how Mark positions it there in Pittsburgh. Mark, all you.
Hey, thanks, Josh. And thanks everyone for zooming in tonight from wherever you are. I know we have a pretty geographically diverse group tonight, and that's great. Hopefully what I have to talk about here over the next half hour or so will help you in some way, shape, or form as you go about your own marketing endeavors with your own operations. So everybody has a story. All of us on here tonight, myself included. That story might be about how we got into farming, how we got into Highland cattle, what we sell, the diversity of our products, and myriad other things. But it all starts with a story. And I think it is that story that underlies any marketing effort, no matter what you're marketing. I attended a grazing conference a few years back, and the Pennsylvania Secretary of Agriculture briefly addressed the group, and he challenged everybody there. It was a marketing session, and he challenged everybody there to use the passion they have for their own story and selling their products to direct consumers. And that stuck with me. I think it all starts with a story. A story leads to a conversation. A conversation usually leads to a sale. So I'll start with my story, and I'll try to keep it brief because we're here to talk about marketing, not me. I grew up on a dairy farm in north central Pennsylvania. It's been in my family for generations. Small dairy farm by today's standards. My older brother actually still runs that farm, still milks cows, believe it or not. And I, as a kid, was prepared to join him in that endeavor until I got to college. Like lots of kids that grew up on a dairy farm, I realized that there were hundreds of other things that I could do with my life that didn't involve getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for the rest of my life. So eventually I pursued a career in commercial real estate in Pittsburgh, primarily Pittsburgh. Eventually that career morphed into a specialization in marketing, we'll say challenged properties, often in challenged markets. And I think that's something that helped me in a big way to put together the marketing program that we're using now on our farm. As I approached my 40s, I guess like lots of people in that age range, I started to take an interest in healthy living. And that included the food that I was putting in my body, its effect on the environment, and the world in general. I started to buy Scottish Highland, or grass-fed beef, grass-fed organic beef from a Scottish Highland grower in Lisbon, Ohio by the name of Max Van Buren. And I didn't seek him out because he had Scottish Highland cattle. I sought him out because he had grass-fed beef. And I wanted to give it a try. Honestly, even though I grew up on a dairy farm, we didn't do anything grass-fed. We certainly didn't do anything organic. And I was curious what that was all about. And through the course of my conversations with Max, I started to learn about the breed. And like most people that didn't know much about these critters, I was intrigued. And I was intrigued enough that eventually I bought a handful of animals and started a hobby operation on a friend's farm about 25 miles east of Pittsburgh. And eventually, I bought some breeding stock. I bought 3 cows and a bull from John and Judy Ligo, who I'm sure some of you know, live not too far from where I am, north of Pittsburgh. And for the next 5 years or so, I operated a hobby farm, still had my day job, produced enough beef for myself and a handful of friends and neighbors. I had no marketing plan at the time. I didn't really need one. I was approached by 2 customers of mine, a husband and wife couple, Tom and Dana O'Connor, in 2013, about the possibility of growing the operation into a commercial enterprise and marketing grass-fed Highland beef in a bigger way. And I was at a point in my life where that seemed to make sense. I could sort of morph out of some of the real estate work that I was doing. And so I was prepared to tackle this thing full time. So long story short, we grew the operation from what I had at the time, which was anywhere from 10 to 15 animals, to 130 head last year at this time on 3 different farms, all pretty close together. Those farms were about 30 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, and I still lived in the city and commuted to the farms. Over the course of the last year, for a variety of reasons, I decided that 130 head was a few too many, and 3 farms was probably 1 too many. So over the course of the last year, we cut back a little bit. We're now down to an operation on 2 farms, one of which we bought earlier this year, the other one we rent. We have an operation of anywhere from 75 to 85 head of purebred and crossbred Highland Devon on 2 farms. Like I said, we have roughly 50 brood cows and heifers. We keep about 30 steers. Over the past year, we've butchered on average 3 to 4 a month. We added Devons to the mix 3 years ago in an effort to increase the growing, to increase the frame size of our animals and decrease the growing time. It's actually worked out very well for us. I really like that cross. So we practice management intensive grazing, call it rotational grazing, mob grazing, whatever you want to. We move our animals on both farms to new grass every day where it's reasonably feasible and when it's reasonably feasible to do so. This time of year, we're moving them sometimes more than once a day. Later on, as the grass growth slows, we'll slow that down a little bit as well. The rotational grazing has worked out very well for us. I've seen a remarkable improvement in the quality of our beef over the years, and certainly improvement in the quality of the forages and the grasses and legumes that we're raising. We have added other amendments to improve soil health over the years. We've limed and we've broadcast seed at different times. We're always looking for ways to improve what we do on the production end of things. I guess maybe because of my background, maybe because of where I am. I've always thought that I'm better at marketing this stuff than I am producing it. So I can always use help on the production end. By no means do I have a monopoly on brains in that department. So I'm willing to take advice or help from anybody that has a better idea on how to do this. One of the things we did, and I like to think that this was an improvement, is we added free range hens to the mix about 3 years ago. We have about anywhere between 20 and 30 hens at any given time. We sell eggs now as part of our product mix. We have a mobile chicken coop. The picture you see, it's not mobile yet. I actually took that when we first got our chickens 3 years ago. We try to move the coop around and follow the cattle in their rotation. Again, as much as that's reasonably feasible to do, we have to take into consideration distance, access to the birds by predators, that kind of thing. So they don't always follow the cattle, but we try to make that happen as much as we can. And you know, we're always, now that we've cut back on the number of cattle that we have, we're looking at the possibility of diversifying our species mix. Actually exploring adding either sheep or goats or both to the mix. We still have a lot of overgrowth on our main farm. And I think goats would be helpful in doing that. So it's something we might pursue yet this year if I can be assured that I have fence enough to keep them out of the neighbor's yard. So almost from the beginning of when we went commercial with this thing, and again, I think this is a function of where I live, where we're doing our marketing, which I'll talk about more here. But we were faced with the vexing problem of having more demand than I have had animals mature enough to butcher. So through the association, through our regional association and through ACA, I reached out to some other growers of Highlands that raised them the same way I did on grass and adhered to the same kind of principles that we do on our farm, and was able to establish these collaborative partnerships where when we were short on animals to meet our needs, I could buy a few from other people, whether that was to bring them onto our farm and finish them, buy them as calves or yearlings and raise them outright, or just send them straight to the butcher. And we've done all of those things. What I have found in the course of the time that I've been doing this is that there are a whole lot of growers out there, whether they're growing Highland cattle or anything else, that don't have the time or even the desire maybe to actually market their product. You know, it might involve time at a farmer's market. It's time consuming. It just may not be their forte. We've been pretty good at marketing what we have, and you know, we're able to pay market rates for whatever animals might be out there available to us that meet our protocols. And I found a lot of times other growers are very happy to sell them to us and let us do the retailing while they do the growing. And that's worked out pretty well for us as we've grown our market base. We've not only done that with cattle, we've also added grass-fed lamb. I actually have a neighbor that grows grass-fed lamb. He was once certified organic even. And he was taking all his lambs to the auction to get rid of them. And I was able to show him that I could actually make him more money by buying his lambs at a wholesale price and retailing them. A couple of years ago, we actually added pastured pork to the mix. I have a good friend that raises pastured pigs, and we have the same arrangement at him. So again, I think I'm better at marketing than I am at producing. I know there are other people out there that are better at producing who maybe just don't want to do the marketing. So it turns out to be a win-win for all of us. So our product mix today looks something like this. Of course, beef is our mainstay and always will be. We have lamb and pastured pork and eggs, and we also have what I call beef byproducts. My partner Dana added a commercial kitchen to her house a few years ago, where she started to produce bone broth and eventually dog liver treats, cooking tallow, and tallow balm. Her kitchen's USDA and health department approved, so we're able to sell this stuff in most venues without getting any slaps on the wrist from USDA or any other authorities. We keep all our products in a bunch of freezers in a warehouse, actually within the city of Pittsburgh. From there, we deliver or customers pick up. It's worked out very well since most of our customers are in and near the city. And we're always, just like on the production end, we're always looking at ways to improve how we market and what we market, and looking for new products to add to the mix. We'll see where the sheep and goat thing goes. That may be next on this slide. So one of the interesting things we added to our package of products was a tiny house. We parked a tiny house at the farm about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, I guess. Initially, to give me a place to stay when I didn't want to commute back and forth to the farm. I found myself not using the house as much as I would have liked, and a friend suggested putting it on Airbnb and making some money at it. So I did that, and honestly, we were overwhelmed with the inquiries and the bookings that we got. In fact, we weren't really ready for it. But we made some improvements to the thing. We made it part of what we do at the farm. It's a great opportunity. One of the things that I really like doing is talking to people about what we do, and better yet, showing them what we do. And this has provided a great opportunity to do that. We are booked most weekends and several weeknights through this summer. And COVID didn't slow us down a bit last year. In fact, if anything, it increased the amount of interest from folks that were staying here. I guess maybe because it's not a hotel and it's pretty isolated from most of the world. We had a lot of guests last year, in particular, from the Pittsburgh area. Prior to that, it had largely been travelers, people from outside the area. So that says a lot about where things were last year. So we call it Highland House. There's actually a little sign on the side of it that says that, and people seem to love it, and we love hosting them. So this has worked out very well for us and become one of our major profit centers. So enough about me. That's my story in a nutshell. Let's talk about marketing. I think and have always thought that marketing anything boils down to three very broad categories. And I say broad because these things are influenced, nuanced by circumstances that are unique to any one of us. I'm going to talk about these components from my perspective and what we do at Pittsburgh or Highland Farm. But, insert your own circumstances and it applies to you as well. The three categories are product, audience, and geography. Quite simply, what he is selling, to whom he is selling it, and where. I think that forms the basis of any marketing effort. Let's dissect each of them a little bit here. Again, from our perspective at Pittsburgh or Highland Farm, our product mix is beef, lamb, pork, eggs, and our tiny house, Highland House. The things that we emphasize, the areas of emphasis that we pursue as we market any of these products is that our beef and lamb are grass-fed and grass-finished. Our pigs are pasture-raised. We emphasize our adherence to the QHB program that Josh talked about earlier. I'll talk a little more about that in a bit. The market integration of lamb, pork, and eggs has been a great enhancement to what we do. found early on, when all we had was beef to offer, we got lots of inquiries about other stuff like lamb, pork, and eggs. And that's what led to our adding those things, whether in collaboration with others or doing it ourselves, that were locally raised. None of these products are trucked across the state, across the country, or around the world. They're produced right here, 30 miles from Pittsburgh. And that means a lot to people. I think it means a lot more to people after what we all went through last year. We adhere to sustainability. We use sustainable and eco-friendly practices. That's important to our audience, and I try to emphasize that as much as possible. We have a lot of conversations that revolve around that. And certainly the presence of Highland House is something that we talk about, part of a bigger agritourism thing that we do. So our audience is pretty simple in our case. They're city folks. We sell primarily to urban and suburban folks in the city of Pittsburgh and nearby. Most of them buy smaller amounts, usually by the cut, a couple pounds of ground beef, a couple steaks, and they usually want smaller portions. So the smaller frame of Highlands has worked to our advantage. That's why when I looked at crossbreeding, I didn't go with something like Angus or Herefords that could have increased our carcass size more than it did. I looked at Devons, and the mix has been pretty good. We're very happy with a 500 to a 550 pound carcass. It works well for us. And the resulting cuts work well for the audience that we have. Our folks are interested in the quality of the product. They want to know that it's grass-fed and finished 100%, that we don't cut any corners, that we grow it locally, and that we use sustainable practices. I once heard Joel Salatin say, you can sell large amounts of beef, meaning quarters and halves, to a small audience, or you can sell small amounts of beef to a larger audience, or you can do anything in between. When I was doing this as a hobby operation, I sold quarters and halves. That just worked better for a smaller operation like me. As we grew this thing and got to know our audience a little better, the city audience that it is, it made a lot more sense for us to sell small amounts as long as we had a large enough audience center where that works for us. It may not be true of all of you, but you modify accordingly. So consequently, our geography, like I said, it's the geography, call it your market territory if you want to. Ours is primarily urban. At least 95% of our customers live in the city or nearby suburbs. Probably less than 5% is rural, meaning close to the farm. We do offer delivery on orders over $100. My partner Dana does most of the order taking, inventory control, and delivery. She tries to deliver as efficiently as possible to certain parts of town on any given day. We also have designated pickup points, either at our warehouse or other places around the city. One of which is a farmer's market, which we do every Saturday morning. And lots of our customers actually pick up pre-ordered goods at the farmer's market. So consequently, we have very few on-farm sales. I can actually count on both hands the number of regular customers that actually pick up their products at the farm. The irony is, when that happens, I actually have to go to the warehouse first, pick up their goods, and take them to the farm. So our market share in our particular case looks something like this. We have roughly 450 customers, direct customers, that is. And like I said, we offer delivery and pickup in the farmer's market. Wholesale makes up about 10%, probably a little less than 10% now of our total sales. We have 3 retail stores, 2 of which are neighborhood markets in the city, and our local food co-op. We have sold to 1 restaurant for 4 or 5 years that restaurant has actually been closed over the last year. So we haven't been selling anything to him. Our wholesale price is 80% of what we retail our products for, which begs the question, why bother? We've never looked for a wholesale customer. All three of these markets and this restaurant found us. We have concentrated our efforts on building up our base of direct customers. That's where we make our best money. But I look at wholesale sales as an opportunity to extend our reach. We have a label on every one of our products, those products and that label on the stores of these retailers at the food co-op. Our name on the menu of a high-end restaurant, I think, is a great way for us to create more direct customers, and that has happened for us. Either way, we're bypassing the commodity system, which I think is a great thing, and I imagine most of us do. And we're selling that farm-to-table experience direct to customers. So our marketing strategy, like I said, I didn't have one for the first 5 years or so that I did this. And the one we have now has evolved, and it's still evolving. Things change. Last year certainly proved that. And so anybody's marketing strategy needs to change with it. Our strategy starts with a website. It is the nexus of what we do. We try to anticipate any question or point of information that might come up and include it on our website, including our order forms, how we do this, where we do it. The fact that we collaborate with other growers, we make that all apparent on our website. We do a monthly email blast to a list of about 1,400, no more than once a month. We try to only send something out when we have something that we think is important to our customers to say, and we certainly don't want to spam them. So we try to limit it to once a month at the most. We use social media. Primarily Facebook, but also Instagram and Twitter. When we first went commercial, we spent hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, on some print ads in specific publications in the city of Pittsburgh. We even bought a radio ad on a public radio station and tried some other promotional gimmicks. What we have found over the course of the years is that spending 20 or 30 bucks to boost a Facebook post about the farmer's market or any product we might have too much of or anything else works a whole lot better than spending the hundreds of dollars that we did on those ads and those other promotions. So social media is a big part of what we do. Of course, the weekly farmer's market, it is a year-round market, Saturday morning, a big part of our strategy. Branding is an important part of what we do. We've worked with a number of different butchers over the years. Last year, we actually had to change butchers again, but we've always tried to work with them to produce an attractive label for our products that includes our name, a logo. It's a Highland head, actually, and our website and telephone number. We put those labels on all our products. That logo's on all our signs. We have signs at the farms, both farms. We have signs at the warehouse. There are signs on the side of my truck. So we put it everywhere, including all correspondence, whether it's written or electronic. We just try to get our logo out there through branding so that people become familiar with our name. Of course, Highland House and the agritourism opportunities have become a big part of our strategy. We have done some trade shows over the years, other than the farmers market, farm to table events, food shows, when it makes sense to be there, and if it's not cost prohibitive or time prohibitive for us to be there. One of the most successful trade shows we did was 5 years ago. We participated at a hefty cost. It was about $1,000 in the Pittsburgh Marathon Expo. There's nothing like setting up a table in front of 30,000 runners that are all seeking a high protein diet when you're selling grass-fed beef. It worked out very well for us. In fact, it probably doubled the size of our mailing list at the time. Highland cattle themselves and the related QHB protocols are a big part of our marketing strategy. I'm going to talk more about that a little later on here, but I think the cattle themselves are part of the marketing effort. At least they are in our case. And of course, the wholesale sales, as I said, we look upon as an opportunity to extend our market presence. More important than anything else, I think, is flexibility and fluidity. Like I said, things change and your marketing strategy has to change too. What we're doing now is certainly not the same thing that we were doing 6 or 7 years ago. And what we're doing today is probably not going to be the same as what we're doing a few years from now. Things will change, and we need to be able to react to that. So what is the QHB program? Many of you already know, some of you are probably members. The Quality Highland Beef program was developed by ACA, as Josh talked about early on, following a study that was done, paid for by the Highland Cattle Foundation, done at the University of Missouri to compare Highland beef with other breeds. Following the release of the results of that study, ACA formed a QHB committee. It was headed by John McLaughlin, who's on our beef marketing committee. Through his leadership, a set of protocols were developed for members who wanted to adhere to those and could use the QHB label and QHB marketing materials that Josh highlighted earlier. The basic protocols are here on the screen. The beef has to be at least 50% Highland, so our cross breeds do qualify. A minimum 450 pound carcass, 14 to 36 months butcher age. They have to be steers and unbred heifers, otherwise would be for all ground beef, called cows and bulls. Participants have to adhere to beef quality assurance handling standards, and of course, no added hormones, anabolic steroids, or any of that other stuff. If you're not already a member of QHB, I certainly encourage you to look into it. For an additional $40 on top of your ACA dues, you have access to the marketing materials that were displayed. Maybe more important than that, I can tell you from my own experience, it's going to help you on the production and get better at what you do. And it's certainly going to help you on the marketing end as well. So definitely look at QHB. So what's important to our customers? I tried to rank these. I don't know that they're necessarily in order because these things change too. But above all else, I think is a consistent quality product. That doesn't mean that they're looking for the same size steak every week when they come to the farmer's market. If they were looking for that, they'd go to the supermarket. But they're looking for consistent quality. They know we're 100% grass-fed, so it's going to be different from conventional beef, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be good. I like to think we've gotten better at creating consistent quality through improved grass and forages, hay, through our crossbreeding program and adherence to QHB. Certainly grass-fed and grass finish is important to our customers. They want to know that it's 100% grass-fed, that it's locally produced, that we use our sustainable practices and good environmental stewardship. And our transparency, I think, is important to our customers. Like I said, we are open about what we do. We invite anybody to come to the farm, whether it's just for a day visit, or to spend a night or two at a Highland house and see what we do and how we do it. The only certification that we have, actually, you don't see certifications on this list. Early on, we looked into even organic certification and found the hurdle insurmountable. We looked at a variety of other certifications, animal welfare, grass-fed certifications. At the end of the day, these aren't the things that our customers are asking about. They're asking about all this other stuff. Organic certification. I mean, we use organic practices as much as it's reasonably possible for us to do. We are certainly grass-fed. We certainly treat our animals right. We don't have certifications to attest to any of that. The only certification we have is the ACA-based QHB program. That just hasn't been important to our audience, so it's kind of gone to the back burner of the things that we want to do down the road. It's not saying we won't pursue other certifications. It's just not something that seemed like it was necessary to make us better at marketing. So this is just a page from our website. Our webmaster created this a few years ago. She actually took some information about grass-fed beef cattle and applied Highlands to it. I said earlier, we use Highland cattle as one of our marketing tools. You know, I think everyone on this call tonight that raises Highland cattle probably has a passion for the breed, or we wouldn't be doing this and you wouldn't be here. I have developed that passion over the years, and I love talking about these critters to anybody that wants to listen, whether it's at the farmer's market or on the telephone or out the window of my truck at a stoplight. You know, I love talking about Highland cattle, and I love talking about their many positive characteristics and how that translates into good food. And you know, again, I think it's going to depend on your audience. To go back to what I talked about earlier, the three major components. Our audience are primarily city folks, as I said. Maybe they're more, you know, most of these city folks haven't seen cattle at all, let alone Highland cattle. Some people aren't even sure they're cattle. I don't know how many times I've heard, are they yaks? Are they bison? What are those things? Those are questions that I love to answer. And again, it's part of our story. It begets a conversation. A conversation usually begets a sale. So I encourage all of you to employ your passion for the breed as part of your marketing program. Make it part of your story. So this is our beef order form. We have separate order forms for lamb and pork. But I thought I would highlight this one. It's on our website as well if you have trouble seeing this and care to take a closer look. The top 2/3 or so of the order form describes our individual cuts, including our byproducts, bone broth, tallow, etc. The bottom portion describes our bulk bundles. We have created bundles from as small as what we call a sampler for $75 to as large as what we call a keystone bundle for $1,175. And we've tried to highlight there in parentheses the retail value of each. The more you buy, the greater the discount. 75% of our customers order from the top 2/3 of this list. We don't sell that many bulk bundles, but we feel like we need to make them available to the customers that do have big freezers and want to buy in bulk. We're happy to sell small amounts to lots of people. We make more money doing that. We're also happy to sell bundles, and you know, we do plenty of both. I stopped doing the quarters and halves thing. It's not that we won't do it. It's just we don't make that part of our marketing effort. We've created the bundles instead. People have choices within those bundles based on what we have available in the freezer. And that's worked out very well for us. Again, it's going to vary depending on your geography and your audience and to some extent, even your product. And, you know, this is going to be different for everybody, but this is what works for us. This order form, just like the marketing strategy, has changed many times over the years. Probably more the content and the makeup and the mix of the bundles than even the pricing. We base our pricing on what's happening out there in retail operations that sell grass-fed beef, like in our market, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and some other higher end markets. We also base it on what the competition's up to, and we have plenty. We are not the only farm in the Pittsburgh region that sells grass-fed beef. We're not even the only farm that sells Highland beef. More important than anything, we base our pricing on our costs. You know, no matter what you're selling, if you don't know what it costs you to produce it, it's something you definitely need to take a look at. If you can't cover your costs and make a little money on top of that, then you probably need to look at your overall model, not just marketing. All of our products are vacuum sealed, by the way. Every butcher that we have ever used, I think over the 12 years or so I've been doing this, does vacuum packaging. We think that's a must. We have a few customers that want fresh, not frozen. The restaurant that we sell to always wanted fresh, not frozen. But most of our customers are happy with the frozen product as long as it's vacuum packed. So I'm looking at my clock here, and I've done about 35 minutes or a little longer than that, which is about on target. That is our story. I encourage all of you to tell your story. Think about what you're selling, to whom you're selling it, and where. And above all else, be willing to be flexible in what you do, because as we know, things change, and how you go about doing this, marketing beef or anything else, is going to vary based on those three big things. And there's no one size fits all by any means. And just when you think you have it all right is when you realize that you don't. Like I said, we've changed lots of things over the years. So I think Josh has been collecting questions, so I'm going to turn it back over to him, and
Yeah,
I'll try to answer as many of those as I can.
perfect. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And I will get to some questions here. So if you're wanting to ask a question, if you're on the video screen, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a button called chat. If you hit on the chat feature, that'll pop up. You can go ahead and put your question there, and we'll answer them that way. You can also text your questions to 763-260-1001 if you're on the phone. So those are the two ways that you can ask for questions. So Mark, let's jump into some questions. You want a softball first, or you want a really hard one?
Oh, I don't know. Start with a hard one. Do the hard ones
All
first.
right, sure. So question is, when you're wholesaling, how many pounds or animals do you require to consider it a wholesale customer?
We don't do it that way. The only difference between wholesale and retail for us is price. It's not quantity or makeup of the product. One of our retail stores may want 100 pounds of ground beef. We're going to sell that to them at 80% of what our retail price is. And, so I'm guessing that just based on previous numbers that our wholesale portion of our business is about 10% of the total. So if you want to look at it that way, 10% of every carcass is going to go into wholesale sales. But what they are, they are no different than what we sell to any retail customers. We don't have specific cuts for wholesale versus retail.
Sure. And no,
I hope that answers the question.
yeah, and I think it's probably, the question is probably around, is there a minimum? Like if somebody called and said, hey, I want 50 pounds of ground beef and I own a grocery store, would you sell it to them?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have a minimum. We have sold to very small markets, neighborhood markets in the city of Pittsburgh. We had a market that bought 10 pounds of ground beef a week. They don't anymore. The manager changed hands. He's now a vegetarian, so that went away. But we don't have a minimum. As long as we can make it work, as long as Dana can make it work within her system of deliveries, we'll sell any amount to anybody.
Sure.
That's just part of what we do.
And part of the point maybe on that is, and you mentioned it earlier a little bit, is those wholesale markets almost serve as a form of advertising for you, don't they, Mark?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, as I said, I look at it as an extension of our retailing, of our own retailing. We like to think, with our label on every product out there, that there's a very good chance that the customers of these markets we're selling to are going to become direct customers of ours, and that has certainly happened for us. Same with the restaurant.
Can you expound a little bit, Mark, on what grass-fed finished processing means to you?
It means that our cattle live on grass and forages, no grain, no corn ever. I do separate my butcher animals at some point, depending on geography and numbers, I guess, into separate paddocks, and I try to finish them on better forages as much as I possibly can. A lot of folks have asked me, what do you do to get them in the trailer on loading day? Honestly, I use alfalfa pellets. I have my critters trained to think that alfalfa pellets are a drug. Sometimes I can just rattle the bag and it gets them excited. So
Yeah.
we don't use grain or corn or any other supplements ever. So
And,
that's 100. Max Van Buren used to call it 100% grass fed. More people I've heard call it grass fed and grass finished.
sure. And you just hit on something else there. You should have some way to handle your cattle for loading and a process, and if you need alfalfa pellets or whatever, you have to know what that is, because loading day can be kind of stressful when you're handling cattle, Mark. So how do you keep that stress down?
Um, Loading day, butcher day is the most stressful day of the month for me. I usually don't sleep the night before, for a variety of reasons, because it can go badly. Over the past year, the ability, as many of you know, I'm sure I'm not telling anybody anything new here, but last year was a bear for most of us to get butcher dates if we could get any, and we actually wound up changing butchers in the middle of the year. So if you don't get them loaded on the appointed day, you might lose it until the next month or even longer. So for that reason, it's a stressful day. It's stressful for man and beast alike. We have loading corrals, which have changed in design lots of times over the years. I like to think we're getting better at it. I have a guy that actually hauls the cattle for me. I don't have my own trailer. What we have found works better is to actually park the trailer at the corral a few days ahead of time so that the cattle are used to it being there. I start the alfalfa pellet thing a few days ahead of time. And for the most part, loading day has gotten a lot easier. I also like to think that I've just gotten better at culling and selection over the years. I've gotten rid of jittery females. I've tried to put together a good breeding program and breed for good temperament. And that part has certainly gotten better for me. I've certainly had some devils. I think we all have. But, I really like the temperament of my herd at large these days. So, it's a combination of things.
Sure. How far do you travel to deliver your products, Mark, and how often do you do deliveries?
Uh, that depends on a lot of different things. Dana tries to make deliveries a couple days a week, like 2 days a week. Um, we Dana lives in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh, not too far from where our farmers market is. If we can, we encourage people to either pick up at the farmers market or at the warehouse or some of our other pickup locations. If not, Dana will put them on the delivery route. If they're far outside of her travels, we have shipped product before. It's really not, it's not a cost effective way to do business. We don't do a lot of shipping, but we have done that. And we have some people that come pretty far. Some of them, like I said, meet me at the farm, but we have people that come from pretty long distance to pick up a product if we can't make delivery happen for them. But we try to be flexible and make it happen wherever we reasonably can do so.
Sure. Mark, we have a couple questions here about processors. So let me throw a couple of them here at you so you can kind of discuss finding a processor in general. So one question here is, how difficult was it to get a processor that would use a more updated packaging format and personal labels?
In approximately 12 years of doing this, both small scale and larger scale, I think I've been through 8 butchers. None of them are perfect, but certainly some have been better than others. Up until October of last year, we used the same butcher for 6 years, and I think we took him for granted. He was really good. He was only 8 miles from our farm. But he decided after the craziness of 2020 that he wasn't going to do inspected butchers last year. So we had to find a new butcher, and that hasn't been easy. We're still working on that, quite frankly. I found a guy that works out pretty well for us, and part of it is just change. We got used to the guy we had. Um, it's hard. I mean, it's hard right now because there's just butchers are hammered with business, and most of them aren't taking on any new customers and can't schedule a date for months or even years down the road. So there's nothing easy about that, and I have no easy answers. For those of you that are located in more remote locations where there are fewer butchers, and if you need an inspected one on top of it, it's going to be a challenge. We even explored late last year and earlier this year the possibility of investing in our own butcher business. We have since decided not to do that. We don't have the passion to do that. We really don't want to be in the butcher business, but it is something we explored because things got that difficult for us. And my criteria for what makes a butcher good or not depends on a lot of things. Certainly the consistency and quality of the packaging. I used a butcher just once, when we first started doing this commercially, and the packages I picked up were filled with blood and then frozen. Every package looked like liver to me, and it looked like they let the carcass get too warm when they cut it up. So, we retail a lot, and we sell to some wholesalers, so our product needs to look good. Certainly the quality of what's inside is most important, but it also has to be packaged well. We certainly like a butcher that'll work with us on a label. We want an attractive label, preferably with the USD stamp and our information all on one label, so it doesn't look like we just stuck something on somebody else's product. So there are a lot of things to consider. Distance, certainly how far do we have to go to get our animals there? How do they treat the animals when they are there? We like a humane butcher if there is such a thing.
Right.
So we look at all those things.
Yep. And part of that is, the butchers are in business too, right? And to a certain extent, you do get what you pay for in some cases. You know,
Exactly.
you want to work with a butcher that's making a living just like you're trying to. So that leads to our next butcher related question here. So do you find that the butchers or processors that you've worked with, that they're reluctant to work with Highland cattle versus non-horned cattle, Black Angus, for example, polled breeds? And have you had to do things to fit into their system, such as dehorn the cattle?
We've never dehorned cattle. Of course, with our crossbreeding, we're taking more polled animals into the butcher than we are horned animals now anyway. But to answer the question directly, it has generally not been an issue for us with any of the butchers we've used. I know that is an issue with several, and I know there are some butchers in our area that won't do horned cattle at all, or they limit them to a certain size, 8 inches or smaller, and that sort of thing. That has not been an issue for us. I'm just speaking from our own perspective. We've lucked out that way.
Yeah, and it really, I think that is a really regional question too. It
Yeah.
kind of depends on the number of butcher options you have in your area. There's some people that don't have any options. There's one place to go. I know some people who have actually gone to the point where the USDA inspector comes to their farm, and they've paid for that fee in order to have that on farm kill done, and then taken it to the facility after that. But that's an additional cost to have the USDA inspector actually on farm for that. So it definitely is a regional question. So a question here, Mark, on meat storage. Do you own the meat storage facility, or are you renting pallet space? If rented, do you find that to be more economical than on-farm freezers?
Uh, I lucked out when I found partners, or my partners found me. Tom and Dana own a sizable construction company in Pittsburgh. They actually do business all over the country, and about I don't know, 7 or 8 blocks from where I live is their construction warehouse. We were given a corner of the warehouse for our beef storage operation. Initially, we were actually going to build a walk-in freezer. We just haven't done that yet. We may still do that, but that's where we store our freezers. We actually have 10 chest freezers where we keep all our products. So we don't pay for any of it. And again, those are just beneficial circumstances for us. I know not everybody has that advantage, but it's worked out real well for us. The warehouse is in a spot that's easy to get to for anybody that's coming to pick up. It's easy for us to get out to make deliveries. It's really well located and accessible at any hour.
So speaking about lucked out, you mentioned this earlier in your presentation about having an FDA approved kitchen. Can you kind of describe what the process is to get that?
Well, it's USDA. It had to be USDA inspected.
Okay.
Again, my partners own a construction company, so Dana can leverage her husband to get whatever she wants sometimes. And in this case, she got a commercial kitchen in the basement. The USDA inspection, as I recall, this was about 3 years ago, wasn't as difficult for her as our county health department was. They actually put us through. We have to get a health permit to do our farmers market too. So Allegheny County, where we're located, is pretty tough. But it can be done. And it may be easier for other folks to do that than it was for us as far as permitting goes.
And that leads to another question that often comes up. And so again, it's regional, it depends, but what licenses, insurances, and things do you carry or are required?
We beyond the commercial kitchen and the farmer's market, and of course USDA inspected product for resale. I don't think there's anything else required. Insurance, of course, is optional, but we carry plenty of it. We had some damage. We had some tornado damage to our tiny house 2 years after we got it. And so we even have that insured under a separate policy since it's become a separate profit center for us. Of course, the cattle are insured, and we carry plenty of liability insurance in case, if I get these goats that I talked about earlier and they get out on the road, we certainly want to be insured for any trouble something like that might cause. As far as permitting, our farmers market's located in the city of Pittsburgh, and it's in Allegheny County. So they do come by and do spot inspections. So I think for $68 a year, we have to get a permit to be at that particular farmer's market. It's not that big a deal. It's never really been a problem for us. As far as what we do at the farm on the production end, I'm not aware of any licenses or permitting that are required there. We have to do a manure plan with our local farm service bureau, but I imagine most people have to do that. And since we're grass fed, it's pretty easy.
Yep. And again, that's kind of a regional state question, because different states have different requirements. Some states, if you have a freezer on hand, you have to get licensed. Some require different levels of insurance. So it is kind of a regional thing as well from that aspect. So we're still taking questions here. If you haven't figured out how to ask a question, there's a chat button on the bottom of the video. You can go ahead and push that chat button and enter your question in there. That'll come to the group or to me. And then you can also text any questions to 763-260-1001. So another question here, Mark, is around cull cows. What do you do with them? You package them into different cuts, you do in hamburger, and then a related question, what is the oldest age you can sell for consumption as QHB?
I don't know if I know the answer exactly to the last one. I'm not sure there is a maximum age. There is a maximum age for cuts for ground beef, cull cows, and bulls. I don't know that there is a maximum age. If John McLaughlin's on here, he probably knows the answer to that. If he's not, or if he doesn't, it's actually on the ACA website. All those protocols are listed in detail under the QHB tab on the ACA website. If it's over 36 months, according to QHB standards, if it's over 36 months, it can only be sold as ground beef. And I think The fillets are actually permissible too, and maybe briskets, as I recall. Again, those standards are listed on the website. The exact.
Yeah, and I'll help you there, Mark. So there is no max age on anything that is ground or ground products for QHB.
Okay.
So what do you do with a cull cow though, Mark?
We've always done ground beef. Most of our call cows have been older, 10 years or older. I get rid of them if they don't breed, or if I just don't like them.
Sure,
uh, and generally they're older animals, so they're going to be ground beef.
sure. So a couple questions here about marketing at the farmers market itself. What types of signs do you use to help draw customers in to your booth at the farmers market and differentiate yourself from the other booths that are there? And then how do you set up your booth to attract new customers that are walking by?
I don't know that we do anything extraordinary. We have a tent. The farmers market sets some parameters on how much space you have and even what kind of tent you can have. It's a 10 by 10 tent at our market. We have a pull up banner sign that we had designed that we use. It's pretty attractive. We've added things to our table at different times. We've even tried to bring sample products like kettle cooked beef or ground beef samples or beef jerky, that kind of thing. We don't do much of that. We found we don't really have to stay busy at the market. First of all, it's a busy market. It's an urban market. It's in the middle of town. It gets a lot of foot traffic. There are about 35 vendors at our market. It's pretty compact. It's held in a hospital parking lot. And most people that come to the market are going to walk past every table, including ours. We've been at this market for 5 years. This is our 6th year, actually. So we're pretty well positioned where we are. We don't do, we try to keep our booth as attractive as we possibly can. We have a tablecloth with a tartan design on it and that kind of thing. We have pictures of our cattle that are framed and on the table. Like I said, we use the Highland cattle as part of our marketing strategy. So we try to highlight the cattle as much as possible and highlight it. We just bring coolers. We don't have a refrigerated or a freezer truck or anything like that. I just load the product into Yetis Saturday morning and take it over to the market, and Dana sells it. By the way, about 50% of what we take to the market's already sold through pre-orders. If it's a good day, we sell the remaining 50% while we're there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too for for a lot of folks that haven't done farmers markets before. They're pretty intensive, for the amount of time, energy. It's not just the time there, but it's also the setup and everything beforehand. So the more you can pre-sell, the better use of your time you're going to have. So do you have other grass-fed beef that you're competing against at your market, Mark?
Not grass fed. There are, I take that back. There actually is one other vendor that sells grass fed beef, but she sells a lot of other stuff too. Beef is not her primary product like it is for us. There is another vendor that sells what they call grass fed beef, but frankly, it's not.
And so related
Good news for us is most people know that.
Sure. So when most people are finding you, are they finding you because of the Highland is different or because they're looking for grass fed?
I think most people find us because it's grass fed. I think the fact that they're Highlands helps. To be honest, I don't know if a customer, we've had a handful of customers over the years come to us because we have Highland cattle, but I get more inquiries about people that want to buy cattle, Highland cattle, than I do people that actually want to consume it. The fact that it's grass fed is probably more important. And, our name helps a lot. If people look for grass fed Highland beef in Pittsburgh, the name Pittsburgh or Highland Farm is usually the first thing that comes up in their search.
Perfect. Well, Mark, we've gone through all of the questions that were submitted. So we appreciate your time. Can you head to the next slide, please?
Oh, yeah.
So just one thing we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of. You've probably seen it in the hoofbeat. You can find more details at highlandsale.org.
Oops,
And
sorry, Josh.
and that is the 70th annual ACA gathering that is happening this fall, October 8th and 9th in Kalamazoo. Diana Rogers, who is a sustainable food dietitian, is going to be speaking there. It's pretty cool that they're bringing in a big name speaker for that. There's tours, there's an AI facility they're going to, all kinds of great stuff going on. So we hope that we can see a lot of our Highland friends and folks here on this call in Kalamazoo in October 8th and 9th this fall for the fall color gathering. So with that, we thank you for joining. For those that asked, this video was recorded. We will be making it available so you can watch it again later. Share it with your friends and other Highland enthusiasts as well. So, Mark, we really appreciate you sharing some insight with all of us tonight. And we thank everybody for joining us on today's call. Have a great evening and watch for the next marketing seminar to come in the future. Thanks all. Have a great night.